Hello and welcome to Become the Teapot. I'm Iain.
And so am I.
And I currently have COVID, so apologies in advance if this informal discussion of comic books and their adaptations is more vague and brain-addled than usual.
Believe us, it's not something we wanted to happen.
Wait, say that again?
It's not something we wanted to happen.
Yeah, that's better. I think there was a bit of distortion on the mic or something. So, what are we covering this week?
Wanted.
Oh, the 2008 film, loosely based on the comic of the same name by Mark Millar and J.G. Jones. Why didn't you say so?
Yeah, I was trying to say so. Anyway, even though you're not feeling great, hopefully the only thing our listeners will catch is a few laughs from our witty banter.
That's doubtful, but okay.
Preamble away, boy.
So, Wanted is a 2008 film loosely based on the comic book / incel masturbatory fantasy by Mark Millar and J.G. Jones. The film stars James McAvoy as Wesley, a quote-unquote loser who is recruited by Angelina Jolie and Morgan Freeman to join a secret league of super assassins. Now, Iain, you said last week that you hadn't seen this one before, so what did you think of it?
Wow. Yeah, like you said, it's a film about a guy who has a crappy life and a dead-end job, and then he's introduced into the world of superhero assassins with superhuman speed and enhanced focus vision, I guess.
Something
Was that
like
one
that.
of them? Yeah.
One of them could do that, and they could bend bullets.
Yeah.
Those are the big powers.
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. I mean, the first 20 minutes are quite interesting. It sort of speeds through the premise and the introduction, which also includes a gunfight and a car chase. So, pretty interesting sort of first 20 minutes. But yeah, I thought it was a fun film. Not a great film. It's an average, generic, early noughties film, really.
Yeah.
Pretty bad writing, but I did find it entertaining.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is a borderline parody, but it is definitely from that early 2000 post-Matrix rip-off genre of filmmaking that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Haley described it as it feels like a Netflix action movie, which, 2 points, she's right, and I know exactly what she meant by that statement when she said it. It didn't need any further explanation. I was like, yeah, this falls into that exact category of very forgettable action movies.
Yeah. I think the last act of the film is where it goes off the rails entirely and not in a good way.
Literally.
Well, yeah. It has got an exciting gunfight. Pretty cool at the end. The one after the rats.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of Equilibrium.
Yes.
A different early noughties film.
Yeah, not the first shout out that film's got on this podcast, which is probably 2 more than it's got on any other podcast ever.
Oh, have you not heard the Equilibrium podcast?
I've not heard that one. Was it long running, was it?
I think it lasted 1 episode.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's a little bit all over the place, like I said. Of course, you've got a training montage chucked in there.
Yeah.
And Wesley's acceptance turnaround speed is stupidly quick.
Yeah.
He gets introduced into this world and then he's like, yeah, all right, I'm in. I just don't get why he sort of goes, yeah, all right, fine. I believe all of this and I'm in.
I think the idea being is that he had such a bad life before. He had to work in a booth in an office and things like that. Oh, God, what loser would do that? It did seem like, and this is more so in the comic book than the film, certainly, the film has definitely downplayed some of these tendencies, that it is very much a fantasy of a 20-something-year-old deadbeat white guy who basically hates his job, hates his girlfriend, etc., etc. As I say, the film is nowhere near as bad as the comic book, but there is a certain level of I'm special. Soon some people are going to realise that, and then I get to run off with Angelina Jolie and kill people. and that's pretty much it. I mean, lots of outlandish things happen to him. That car stunt where he gets picked up by Angelina Jolie in the car definitely would have crippled him.
Yeah.
And he managed to survive that somehow. So
that would have shattered his ankles or his kneecaps or something.
I mean, most of his body, I imagine. But I don't know how he ended up in the car. I physically don't know what happened in that scene. And then, yeah, he does go from, like you say, he goes through that training montage and then does the classic thing of, well, he's done a training montage, so now he's better than all of the other assassins who have been doing this their whole life.
Yeah.
And he can kill them all.
He's pretty much Neo.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one, and that's inverted commas. It's just like, oh yeah, he's the one that can take down this bad guy.
Yeah.
He can win. He can do all of it. But first, let's sit through a training scene where he needs to learn all these skills, when surely 5 of these assassins could have done his job.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand, especially with the reveals at the end. They kind of came up with a reason, but like you say, if they just sent 5 assassins, it would have sorted out. This idea that he was the only man who could get close enough to do the job, which is why they needed him, doesn't really pan out when everyone's a super assassin, and for the most part, they're better at his job than he is.
Yeah.
But he is. He's Neo. He's the bulletproof monk. He's whatever else from the early 2000s. He's Johnny Equilibrium. I can't remember what happened in that film.
Johnny Equilibrium.
So he kills a bunch of people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's his character arc, basically.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some of the other characters?
Yeah. Who in particular?
Well, you've got Angelina Jolie, who is playing Halle Berry from the comics.
Yep.
Doesn't say a great deal in this film. Stands around, drives a car, manages to not chop people's legs off when she hits them with it.
That's a skill.
And then she shoots herself in the head. The end.
Yep.
Great character there. And then you got Morgan Freeman playing Morgan Freeman in need of a paycheck. So those are the main characters.
Yep. Oh, well, no, I'm sure he did want a paycheck, but this came out in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. It even actually shares some filming locations. It was filmed in Chicago.
Yeah.
And there are some scenes where I was taken out of the movie because I was thinking, that's just Batman. You know, the bit where they're driving underneath the sort of train track thing.
Yeah. But surely that'd be the other way around. Like, surely it's watching Batman that would take you. You wouldn't think, because that was filmed in Chicago.
Yeah.
And this was set in Chicago.
Yeah, but
So you
I
wouldn't-
think I wouldn't watch the Batman films and then think of this film
No.
because I'm too engrossed in those films. This film I wasn't that engrossed into, so I was like, oh, that looks like that scene from Batman. Oh, and that one as well. Oh, and that one as well.
So maybe Morgan Freeman was just in the area.
It was just there.
Come on in, Morgan. Do you want to film some scenes? Yeah, I might as well. I might as well. That's my Morgan Freeman.
Well done.
It's better when I don't have corona.
I thought the sort of shredded throat that you have does help the sort of baritones. That's how I met Wesley. Yeah, other characters you want to touch on? Chris Pratt, for example.
Chris Pratt was there.
Yep.
Playing a douche who gets hit in the face, so that's good. Good. Perfect role for him.
Well, I think this may have been his first, or at least one of his first, Hollywood films.
All right.
This would have been a year after he was in the OC, which is the first thing that I saw him in.
Was he in the OC? Jeez.
Yeah, he was one of the, not main cast, but he was in second or third season, I can't remember now, playing like a hippie kind of guy.
Right, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the first time you meet him, he's called Shay.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
Why not?
I didn't realise that was Chris Pratt.
Yeah, he doesn't have any dreadlocks, but he may as well have because he's like sort of like hippy dippy. I'm going to sit in my room and play acoustic whilst being on a beanbag and not wearing any clothes.
Yeah, he started his career just playing douchebags and losers, and I think it's a role far better suited to him than the action hero, quite frankly.
Anyway, that's all that I had to say about him.
No, that's fair.
He's in this film.
He is. And then there are other main characters like Guy Who Punches, Knife Man, and Russian.
Yes.
I don't remember their names. They had names. They had code names, didn't they?
Yeah, one of them there was the butcher,
The
baker,
baker, the candlestick maker.
No,
and then there was Common,
yeah.
who was playing a character with a nickname, but it was just Common, who's already got a nickname.
The repairman, that was one of them.
Yeah. Oh, he was the punching guy.
Yeah, the punching guy.
The guy from Hustle.
Yeah, and not Mad Men.
Mad Dogs.
Mad Dogs, there you go. Let's just name things these actors have been in before.
I'm out, to be honest.
Pad the runtime. Well, Common was in John Wick 2. There you go.
Yeah, he sort of turns up playing himself in largely forgettable action films, but he's never terrible.
He's just there again.
Yeah.
A lot of these people are just there.
Yeah, apart from the sort of guy with the rat who's a Russian dude, who I get the feeling, because it's a Russian director, I get the feeling that he had probably just worked with a director before, so came in for that role.
Yeah.
To give people weird waxy baths that heal them.
Yeah. which I don't think there's any scientificness behind that, maybe? I don't know.
I don't think there's any scientificness to any of this stuff.
Also, how someone's heart could beat 400 times per minute and not kill them.
Yeah.
I was like, that's bullshit.
That's called a heart attack.
Yeah,
It's not,
that's
yeah.
a cardiac arrest.
What's my superpower? Well, you're currently having a heart attack. And until your heart explodes, you will have superpowers.
But yeah, tying this in then with the comic that it is loosely based on, you've got some comparative scenes in the comic, which includes some of the dialogue, especially the sort of first scene. That's pretty much the first panel, if you will, in the book.
Yeah.
There's the shooting the wings off the flies. That's about it. And the character names, or a couple of character names.
A couple of character names. And quite frankly, I'm quite glad that they changed as much as they did because, well, we'll discuss that, I suppose, when we go on to the comic book, which, speaking of, are you ready to go on to the comic book?
Well, before we do, I want to just talk about a big change that they made in the film. The fact that there's not really a bad guy in this. I mean, there is, but there's not.
Mm-hmm.
But the main sort of story point that they changed is the Loom of Fate, which to me is absolute crap. Like,
it didn't make any sense, did it?
No. But all the characters go, okay, fair enough, we'll take the orders from this Loom of Fate, I guess.
Yeah.
And it will tell me a name of someone that I have to kill. Right, okay, so why do we have to kill them? Because the Loom told you. Right, okay. So you're telling me that in America, there's only one person with this name. There's not several people with this name.
Well, also, right, first of all, it's an ancient mystical loom that speaks binary.
10000101.
So, right, let's start with that, yeah. And then, right, disregarding that, they're all rich assassins, right?
Yep.
So who's paying them if they're getting instructed to do this job by the loom?
Does the Loom print money?
I don't, unless they're just really successful linen production. They've got a really nice material that they're producing here on the loom that they're also selling on the side. They don't actually need to kill anyone. Maybe the loom stops producing if they stop killing people and they're like, oh, we need the golden loom thread to run our business.
I have no idea, but it's so stupid.
Like, they're just killing people for idealistic reasons, but then they say, oh, we're going to give you your father's money, and he gets like $3 million or whatever. So where did that money come from?
Oh, the ATM that talks to him in weird comedic ways.
Yeah, well, that was just ripped off from American Psycho. But yeah, I mean, the money didn't come from the ATM. That was meant to be his dad's money. But what was his dad getting paid for if the loom instructs people to kill people? It doesn't make
it really doesn't make sense. And the fact that the police scene at the start is there, but then they don't get caught. They're in a sports car and they get away because they land on the side of a bus. Don't know why.
Oh, yeah, that chase scene.
Yeah.
Also, that chase scene where they're in a sports car, it kept showing lots of scenes of them driving at high speed, lots of action shots, and then every so often they turn around and that guy in the really crappy van would still be right behind them.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was like, how is he keeping up?
That's a Hollywood van where it can go the same speed as a sports car. That's why. It's that famous Hollywood crappy van that can do 70 miles an hour. But yeah, like, they comment on this at the start going, you should call the police, call the cops. And she just rams them. And then I don't think it's mentioned in the film about, we pay them off or they don't come to us or find us. Or
Nah. Doesn't it say they're like the fraternity, so they've got some sort of link? But yeah, I don't know.
A lot of this film is just like one-liners that they go, right, this explains that. And then they move on and that's it.
And I think it's because they changed it so much from the comic book that a lot of the stuff that they changed to make it more palatable to a sort of a Hollywood mainstream audience, in a way, it was changed without really any further thought. They just went, well, instead of supervillains, we'll make them assassins.
Yeah.
And instead of having, supervillain schemes, they've got a weird loom.
Yeah.
And then no one really asked any other questions. They just went, okay, good, cool, moving on, next question. But speaking of the comic book then, so let's move on. Wanted by Mark Millar and J.G. Jones is a comic book miniseries, unlike the film, set in a world where supervillains have won and now have free reign to do whatever they want, including a not insubstantial amount of rape and murder. Wesley is recruited into this band of supervillains and basically becomes the worst one.
Yeah.
The end. So, did you read the comic first and then watch the film? Did you watch the film, then read the comic?
I watched the film and then I read the comic.
Okay.
All I'd seen before we chose to do this was the trailer for the film. That was it. That's all I had to base my history, I guess, on, was a couple of trailers that I'd seen for the film.
Yeah. So, coming off the back of the film then.
Yeah, it's... So pretty early on in issue 1, you can tell it is nothing like the film.
Yeah.
In name only, in a couple of characters, but that's it.
Yeah, like you said, there's a couple of scenes, and the sort of escapist fantasy, male escapist fantasy is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yeah, it is very different.
Yeah. I mean, it is very unusual. It's very bold. The language is very harsh, and the content is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did like the concept. The fact that it's a huge array of interesting supervillains, which the film doesn't have, which I think that they should have included something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the world's been split up into continents and you've got one kind of leader of each, I guess.
Yeah, like a supervillain overlord type thing, yep.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I don't like about it, or there are things that I don't like about it. You know, like you said there's a lot of casualness about mass murder and rape, which makes me feel really uncomfortable when I read it. But I'm taking it by your little preamble to the comic there that you didn't like it.
I fucking hate this comic book.
Wow.
I think it is everything juvenile and repugnant about these sort of edgelord comic books that are aimed at angry teenage boys that give the medium as a whole a bad name. You know, this is the thing that people can point to and say, see, look, we told you comic books were rubbish because this is what kind of thing they're putting out. But and it's frustrating because, and we'll go on to this later, we've read other Mark Millar stories, and Mark Millar can write good stories. But you then get things like this, like Kick-Ass to a certain extent, certainly Kick-Ass 2 onwards, which you didn't read. We read Kick-Ass 1 together, but Kick-Ass 2 has a lot more of this, like you say, casualness around things like rape. And it's all done through the guise of saying, well, no, these are villains, it's okay, but these are the protagonists of your story. They're the main characters. So I don't believe that you necessarily have to like the protagonist of a story to enjoy it, but you usually do have to understand them.
Yeah. And
I neither like nor understand nor empathise with any of the characters in this comic book, particularly Wesley, who is as I say, is just a delinquent's masturbatory fantasy. He's an incel geek who, you know, is far too good for his job. He's got a worthless girlfriend who's cheating on him. You know, minorities suck. You know, I hate my African-American boss, as he keeps describing her, the cholos on the walk back, all of this horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And it's this really early 2000s cringy view of white male adolescent fantasy. You know, the fact that he's drawn to look like Eminem but absolutely ripped and is the best killer in the world, and you know, and he makes all the, like you say, these casual jokes about rape while he's having sex with a thinly veiled Halle Berry character in the comic books. Mark Millar's used likenesses of characters before. It's in fact how we ended up with Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, is from a Mark Millar comic book. But in this context, when the character is so repugnant and all of them are villainous and they talk about these things in such a way, I find it very uncomfortable that you would use someone's likeness in such a closely affiliated way. Clearly with the designs of saying, well, if we ever make this into a film, it should be Halle Berry that plays this role, as it was Angelina Jolie, which is quite a shift. But yeah, I feel like the comic book, you know, Mark Millar, he likes to pretend that he's subverting tropes, that he's doing something different, that he's making a commentary on comic books, but he's not, because he's playing wholly within the confines of the tropes themselves. He doesn't actually deviate from them. He just throws them up there and says, look, eh? And then carries on as normal. So I feel like it's having its cake and eating its too, you know. As I say, I definitely have my problems with this style of Mark Millar's storytelling.
I did think that you would compare it to Kick-Ass. It has got the same kind of tropes in there, the way he speaks about other races and a lot of slurs and a lot of topics that if you just cut all the bit about rape, they don't have to be in there. We know they are killers and they are supervillains.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You do kind of need to have them killing people because they are the bad guys. Fair enough. But then just drop the whole rape thing, because that doesn't need to be in there.
The rape, the racism, the misogyny, the ableism, just all of this, it doesn't need to be in there. It is completely early 2000s shock humour. It is the reason that Cards Against Humanity is as big a game as it was. You know, it is that sort of thing where, let's just say something naughty, make it so people giggle along at the awful thing. But it just makes, from anyone else's perspective who isn't a sort of adolescent, it just comes across as very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Putting the uncomfortableness of those sort of topics aside, well, after I read issue 1, I was very intrigued to see where this went.
Yeah.
Issue 2 is when you get introduced to the wider world, and I do like it's from the angle of the supervillains and the idea of the parallel worlds. I think it's Earth 594, I think it is. And to me, it's a new take on supervillains. And I do like how they rewrite history, which that was a good little touch, the fact that there were superheroes, now there's not, so they had to change history or change the minds of people to take that out of the equation.
Yeah.
So I like the idea and the concept. Yes, there is problems with it, as we've said, but I think the way the world's been built is quite interesting.
Yeah, there is an element of it which is a parody and a send-up of existing superheroes. So a lot of the villains are, Mr. Rictus is the Joker, whoever the Morgan Freeman character was, whatever his name was. Sloane. Can't remember what his name was in the comic book, but he was clearly the Lex Luthor type character. And you've got a Bizarro figure, but again, with a horrible underpinning of it, which I won't go into because it's, as I say, horribly ableist.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so, there is this sort of subversion of pre-existing norms and of characters that people are familiar with. And perhaps because you've not read a lot of comic books, this is quite fresh, but it is something that has been done a lot, and it's something that has been done better elsewhere.
Right, okay.
This sort of sending up of existing characters. And it's something that actually Mark Millar has done better with things like Superman Red Sun is taking a pre-existing character and changing him to be something different and to show what the world would look like through that alternative history.
You'll be very surprised to know that I have read that one, but years ago.
And it is one of the better Mark Millar stories. It's a good story. He does do good stuff. This isn't, as I said earlier, the first Mark Millar comic book that we've covered for this show. And it's not even the first one where the film adaptation has had to temper some of his more extreme tendencies. I think this is probably the most extreme, but Kick-Ass is certainly toned down from what we end up with in the film, in the comic book.
100%.
And we covered Kick-Ass, Civil War, and Old Man Logan. And generally, I think Millar works better within the confines of Marvel and DC comics, but not in their mainline universe, because he doesn't really understand the characters as they are.
Yeah.
But when he writes things like Superman Red Sun or Old Man Logan, which, if we discount the last issue, we both enjoyed,
Yep.
I find that sort of narrow margin is very enjoyable of his writing. But the rest of the time, I just find that he's just so try-hard in his sort of edgy with a capital E ways and means of trying to provoke a reaction, whatever the cost.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you might not like this. I'm assuming you read it before.
I have, yeah. Yeah, I read it.
Have your views changed at all since you first read it till now?
Probably. I mean, I probably read this when I was a teenage boy, maybe early 20s, but I still didn't enjoy it when it first came out, but I didn't feel as strongly against it. It felt very disposable the first time I read it, and it's only really coming back to it and rereading it that I realised just how much repugnant stuff is in here. But certainly it was never my favourite comic, even the first time around.
Yeah, I can see that. We touched on this in the film point when Wes accepts his new life, I guess. But in the comic, it reminded me a lot more of Fight Club.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some Fight Club tendencies, I guess, in the film.
Definitely.
But in the comic, it's like when not Tyler Durden, what's the actual character's name? The narrator, I think.
Yeah, the narrator, yeah.
When he realises that he doesn't need all the crap that he's bought from IKEA. There's all of those little bits and bobs in here to be like, well, my life sucks, so let's go do something extreme, which in this has become a supervillain. In Fight Club, it's Fight Club.
Well, no, in Fight Club, it's also terrorist acts.
Yeah, it's, fighting back, fighting the man and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the comic, the changes from Wes's boring life to his new life is more Fight Club-esque than the film is.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
Yeah, certainly. There's still a little bit of underpinning of that, and that's one of the few bits they seem to have actually taken from the comic book for the film. It is very much like someone who's not really fully understood Fight Club's message has tried to make Fight Club and just gone, that would be cool, you're right, let's do that. Oh,
someone's got a really boring life. Yeah, let's go make him kill people. Yeah.
That's it.
But even though it was covered in the film about his dad, I think I preferred his dad in the comic than I did in the film. If you're taking aside all the things we've talked about so far. I liked that his dad watched Wesley grow up as a child, but by using the tech that was mentioned earlier on. So he would walk through walls, he would turn invisible.
Yeah.
But they were used for the good, which it allowed him to see his son become a man.
Yeah, I mean, the other way he could have seen his son become a man would have been to be there for his son as he was growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, they called him the Killer, was his superhero, his supervillain name. What he should have been called was Captain Exposition, because he turns up in the last issue and just bleats out the whole backstory for everything that's just happened. And that is all the last issue. It's almost like he wrote 5 issues and then went, oh crap, I have to wrap this up, quick. Have a character come on and explain the plot for a whole issue.
Yeah, so with issue 5, that's pretty much just all non-stop shooting and fighting and whatever. And then his dad turns up at the end of 5. Like you said, 6 comes around. It's like, right, I've got to tie this up into a nice little bow. His dad can explain all of it. That's fine. Yeah. I never actually sort of saw it in that kind of way. Although I did like the ending. I did have a good laugh when Wes turns to Fox and he's like, right, that's it. I'm bored of this. I'm going back to my crappy life, my crappy job, and my girlfriend. And I actually believed him. And then he was like, it was just pulling her leg. I'm like, Wesley, you're a psychopath, but you're funny.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say funny, especially the last line of the comic book, or the last lines is basically, it's several lines of him saying about how pathetic losers who pick up comic books and then you'll just put this back down and go back to their pathetic loser life, working in offices and not going around killing people like fucking losers. And then the last panel,
it's so aggressive.
Yeah. So in the film it is, what the fuck have you done lately?
Yeah.
Which would be a good name for our end of episode segment. But then in the comic book is, this is my face when I'm fucking you in the arse.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It's very in your face. It's very fourth wall. It's very meta. But yeah, far too aggressive. Far too... Why? I just don't get it.
I can only imagine they told him he couldn't just draw a massive middle finger to the reader. So he went with that as the next best option.
Something we've not actually touched on is the artwork. We do occasionally touch on the artwork from time to time. I did like the artwork here. It's pretty good. There's a lot of detail in the backgrounds, which is something that we've talked about with other comics. And also I liked how when they flash back to the 60s or the 80s or whenever it was, that the artwork style changed.
Yeah.
So it was a lot cleaner, a lot brighter.
Yeah. Almost
resembling the sort of earlier comics when it was just like full of colour.
Yeah, they wanted to distinguish between the two time zones. I did get the art is fine. The art is okay. I do get the thing where if people draw characters to look like celebrities, I always find it a little bit that sort of uncanny valley. So the main character looking like Eminem the whole time.
Yeah.
When his dad shows up, he's Tommy Lee Jones, I think it was. It was a bit of a strange one. I was like, oh, okay, well, fair enough. It always, there's a whole run of, I think it was Iron Man. There's a whole run where he's drawn to look like Sawyer from Lost.
Right.
So that's the whole run. They use that as the face model for Tony Stark. And it's really off-putting.
I can imagine.
It's so off-putting when you're reading it. You're like, that is just that's Sawyer from Lost.
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer, who painted fences.
Yeah, we touched about the characters in the film. We've touched about some of the characters in the comic. But one character that I did quite like is the Professor. I like his little ploy to keep the Emperor on his side. He uses the combination of tapping on table, the gift as well, and the scent of the cologne, which I think was the Emperor's father's cologne or something.
Yeah. And what was the gift, Ian? Tell the listeners at home what the gift was.
And it was clearly a riff of kryptonite.
A kryptonite
box.
It was a kryptonite condom.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realise.
That's the kind of comic we're dealing with.
I forgot that bit.
Yeah, there was a bit, I think there's a line in there, it's like, I can't believe we nearly tricked him into wearing this.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Right, I didn't pick up on that. But yeah, what I don't like about the Professor or the writing of the Professor is a trope that we've seen countless times in pop culture. Armageddon, Pursuit of Happiness, is that when he's in the back of his car, he's solving a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Which, in pop culture, if you can solve a Rubik's Cube, then you must be a genius.
Mm-hmm.
They're fairly simple to solve. There's a thing you can learn online that just you
Yeah.
pick up a cube and solve it within a few minutes. Or
A lot of
whatever.
it's muscle memory.
I can't do it because I can't be asked to learn it.
Will Smith can do it.
Let's probably not talk about him. Bit of a touchy subject.
That'd be mild by comparison to this comic book. Maybe we should talk about it.
Fair enough.
We'll stop talking about this comic and just dedicate the next hour to Will Smith.
But yeah, it's just a trope that's one trope that really annoys me throughout things.
Yeah.
And something else that I saw or that I picked up or I realised, the way that there's a character in this called Johnny Two Dicks. Classic name. The way that he speaks to himself, I thought of the way Tom Hardy speaks to himself in Venom.
Yeah.
So you've got, Tom Hardy being Eddie Brock and the symbiote talking with each other in a very similar kind of way.
Yeah, he was also meant to be a bit of a pastiche, I think, of a couple of characters. The ventriloquist, because he was a man who was instructed to do things by his penis. And also Two-Face, obviously. Dual personality type of thing.
Two Dicks.
Exactly. But did you notice anything else about the film or the comic? Maybe any Easter eggs? Is that yes?
Yeah, at that point you can just go, doo-doo-doo. No, wait, hold on. Ian,
You don't want me to just end the show there. Doo-doo.
Yes, I did. I've got some tasty, tasty eggs. Nom, nom, nom.
Lay 'em on me, baby. Iain's egg hunt. Iain's egg hunt. Iain's egg hunt.
I'm not yoking you. So, at the end of the film, when Wesley, in inverted commas, is sat in an office and he's Googling himself, there's a name tag on the cubicle wall. And it says J.G. Millar, which is obviously a combination of Mark Millar and J.G. Jones.
It is indeed. Okay, yes.
Quite like that. That's a nice little pop that in. Yeah, and I don't own this film, which should be surprised because I tend to own a bunch of crap films.
That you've never even watched.
There is an actual real Easter egg hidden on the menu of the DVD.
Oh.
You can go to one of the menus and you can enter in some codes in binary to watch hidden content.
Okay.
01010111 and also 01000100. The first one is W, I guess for wanted, and the last one is D, I guess for the end of wanted. I don't know why they've chosen those two. It's kind of just behind the scenes kind of stuff, and the knife training scene as well.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, that's really about it for the film.
Yep.
But I do like in the comic, there was a bunch of references to other things. As we've said, the artist and Mark have used inspiration from elsewhere. In issue 2, in Wesley's induction, not only does he say the words Marvel Comics, but if you look in the background, there's a bunch of characters that you might go, oh, that's so-and-so and that is so-and-so.
Yeah.
In particular, there's a guy that looks like Ghost Rider, and there's a guy that looks like Mr. Freeze as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I always like having a little look.
Yeah, a lot of those early pages and the pages where they showed the superheroes, they were just recoloured actual superheroes, like, Marvel characters.
Yeah.
Don't know how he quite got away with that, but all right.
Yeah, and there's also one that looks like Kang from Marvel, one that looks like the Abomination, again Marvel, and also one that looks like a green Carnage.
Yes.
Rather than a red Carnage, but... Also, in issue 3, Wesley says that he blows holes in Men of Steel and he slits the throats of Dark Knight detectives, which again, I don't quite know how he got away with that one.
I think it was actually written Dark Knight without the K as well, wasn't it? So maybe...
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I remember seeing that.
Day and night. Yeah, and there's a couple of old TV stars as well that get tortured and killed.
Yeah.
That has to be a play on Batman and Robin.
Yep.
They're even called the Dynamic Double Act.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, I mean, they are pretty on the nose, these sort of things that I'm picking up on, but...
Yeah, and this is a... I know it's thinly veiled pastiche, but then when you have them being tortured, killed, and whatever else, it is uncomfortable. But yes, pretty on the nose. Not a lot of subtlety is what you're saying in this writing.
Yeah, I think... Well, there you go. There was 2 Easter eggs in the film. Well, the second one wasn't even in the film, it was on the disc.
Yeah.
And that was it. So I had to go look elsewhere.
Oh, no. There's loads in the comic.
Yeah, every time I was going through the comic, I was like, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, that's clearly Superman's cape or whatever.
Yeah. There's absolutely loads of references to other comics in the comic, but I just wish there wasn't. So should we get back to the conclusion and wrap up things on Wanted for today?
Yeah, all right.
So, the film, the comic, what were your thoughts?
Film, like I said, it's your standard action film. I wouldn't choose to watch it again. I mean, I had fun with it, but yeah, if you want to watch an action film, go and watch John Wick.
Yeah. Or a number of better action films, yeah.
Yeah. Your view on the film?
Yeah, I mean, film, largely forgettable, borderline parody action film following in a vein of similar early 2000s action films, but vastly preferable to the comic book.
Yeah. I already know what you're going to say about the comic, but do you want to just...
No, that'll do me, to be honest.
That'll do
I think
you.
I've made my points clear about the comic book. As I say, if you're going to do one or the other, watch the film. I would not recommend the comic book to anyone.
Because I actually quite enjoyed the comic. I mean, putting aside all the horribleness of what we've covered.
It's 90% of the comic.
I think I just like the idea, as we've said. I kind of wish that I'd read the comic first and then watched the film. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a read. But like you said, there are other comics that maybe I haven't read that does this trope where it twists the villains over the heroes.
There are ones that, I mean, Old Man Logan did a very similar thing, but there are lots of things that send up existing superheroes and supervillains and retell that story. So I'll have a think about it and I'll recommend you some that are vastly superior to this.
Okay.
But what was Kate's quick opinion of the film? Lay it on me.
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay.
There you go.
Great.
I mean, yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. Any other business?
Yeah, so something has come on TV recently that I really wanted to watch for a long, long time. And that is Peacemaker.
Yes, it has finally become available over here in the UK after a long delay. So for our American listeners or listeners elsewhere in the world, this isn't going to be particularly current. You probably all watched it.
Yeah, I guess so.
But for UK listeners, hey. So what are we going? Are we doing what have you been up to lately?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I jumped straight into Peacemaker because of my flawless segue.
Flawless. Well,
but yeah, anyway, we'll call this segment What Have You Been Up To Lately?
Hello?
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Ian.
What have you been up to lately?
perfect. Not what the fuck have you done lately?
I mean, I prefer not to change it.
Okay, it wouldn't make much sense in any other episode, would it?
But yeah, anyway, I've watched Peacemaker. There you go.
Me too. Me too. Should we have a chat about Peacemaker for a bit and then see what else we've been up to?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, with that show, I mean, I'm oversaturated by comic book shows. You know, I've watched the majority of the Arrowverse, as it's often called.
Yeah.
And also shows like Stargirl, Constantine, Gotham, The Boys, and of course all the Disney Plus shows and all of that. But putting that aside, I really enjoyed it. It's full of heart, filled with Easter eggs, so my favourite.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of James Gunn isms everywhere. And he does have a thing of, he does write shit fathers quite well. He has this like running thing about bad fathers.
Yeah, and this is a really bad father in this one.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your views, or what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I liked it well enough. I had the same reaction to it as I did the Suicide Squad, or even Guardians 2. You know, the plot is fine. I like the characters, the side characters. A lot of the actors are really good. There's some great action scenes, some good set pieces, but I just don't find a lot of the humour very funny. And that made up a huge amount of the show. So I preferred it when it was trying not to be funny, when it was trying to be serious and focused on the story and the characters. And a lot of time I was just willing it to get back to that rather than just having these extended scenes of people riffing or saying gross out things. It's a shame, really, because I really like James Gunn's, some of his early work, Slither, and I've not seen Slither in years, and Super. I really like those films. But I don't know, there's just something about his latest stuff that just feels a bit indulgent when it comes to those comedy bits where someone says something outrageous, then they reiterate that outrageous thing, and then someone says, you did what? And then he says it again.
Yeah,
and then they go, oh, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
And then it just goes on and on and on. It's like, oh, yeah, get on with it.
I can see what you mean, but there's a lot of dialogue in this that you can tell is his humour. Like, for example, there's the Bernstein Bears conversation that they're having in the middle of an op, which you can go, that is James Gunn's humour when it's not trying to be overly gross or overly rude. To me, you go, yeah, that's a James Gunn scene right there.
Yeah, I suppose. It's that idea of professionals talking about something else. It's seen lots of different things, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, I've seen Vigilante in your favourite show, Arrow.
Oh, right.
He turned up in, I can't remember which season now, there's been so many of them. But yeah, in this, he is very much the show's comic relief.
Yeah.
Or at least he's the stupid one.
The problem is, like, he is the stupid one, and that is his entire personality. But then you've also got John Cena playing the stupid one, who's also the comic relief. And then you've got another character playing
I didn't know he was in this. I couldn't see him.
Oh, fuck's sake. I hate that joke. I hate the Drax equivalent of that joke. You see it everywhere, and it's the laziest, shittest form of humour ever.
That's why I said it.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, have you got a favourite character in this show?
I liked Mern a lot. I liked him. I liked the dynamic between the characters more than necessarily the individual characters. Mm-hmm. You?
I mean, I want a pet eagle after watching this, so Eagly has to be my favourite character. I just find...
a completely CGI character.
Yeah. And I want to be hugged by an owl. No, not an owl. I want to be hugged by an eagle. An owl hug would be pointless. But that eagle hug just looks so warm and cuddly. Also, he might peck my face out, so that might be a bit terrifying.
Here's hoping. Right. So, have you been up to anything else apart from Peacemaker?
Yeah, actually. We watched It Chapter 2 recently. Well, it was in between our 2 episodes.
First time?
Yeah, first time I watched it. I had not seen the first one in a while, but still pretty good. A tad too long. You know, it's close to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I think the actors that they got to play the adult counterparts are spot on. That works really well. Some parts of me thinks you don't really need a chapter 2. That's the thing. Like, the first one ended so well that you kind of don't need it, but it is still good. I mean, if I was to watch it again, I'd probably watch 1 and 2 very close together.
Fair enough. I mean, it is the second part of the book that it's based on.
Oh, okay.
They sort of split the book in half to make 2 chapters. But I was really disappointed by the second half. I quite like the first half. I think that it's got that sort of Goonies feel, but in a real horror stakes. Whereas I found the second one, as soon as you made them all adults, I was just bored off my tits, and then you just start killing them, and you're like, I don't care at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and like you say, it's far too long.
It is, yeah. I think we watched it. It was a weeknight, so I think we had work the following day as well. So we actually stayed up late to watch it. Wow. And then I was kind of thinking, wow, it could have been 2-hour film easily.
Yeah.
It does rack in just under 3 hours, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a watch.
And it has no right to be that long.
No, I mean, there's so many scenes that they could have cut or at least shortened down a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, have you been up to anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I have also watched some films. I've, in fact, watched 3 new films to home streaming, so brand new.
Ooh.
I won't dwell on any of them that long because, well, actually, none of them are very good. But I've had a real run of disappointing films lately. But the first one I watched was Death on the Nile, which I watched in preparation for a 1930s adventure RPG I was going to be playing. Let's see, what's the best thing that happens about that? There is a 10-minute backstory for Poirot's moustache. There are far too many random CGI animals in it for no apparent reason.
Okay.
And it is over an hour before there are any deaths on the Nile whatsoever. It is quite nice to look at in a way, but it is extremely boring, and Gal Gadot cannot act.
Well, I think we already knew that, but that's just my personal opinion. What's your other 2 films then?
Other 2 films. I watched The Bubble.
Oh, yeah, on Netflix.
A new comedy on Netflix. Yeah. And I tell you it's a comedy because you probably wouldn't guess if you had just watched it. So it is far too long. Not just the film itself, but every scene in it went on and on and on with all of the potential humour being milked out of it. There are no less than 3 different TikTok dance sequences in this film.
Is that it? Only 3? Oh, I want at least 5.
No. there's 3 full ones. There are several other references to TikTok videos, references to, other social media platforming. It's very, very relevant,
Oh, yeah. It's very on trend.
Exactly. But what it isn't is funny.
I mean, I'm surprised you watched it because I saw the trailer and I'd go, isn't your kind of film.
We wanted, this is post getting COVID, and Hayley and I wanted something quite casual to watch. We wanted something a bit lighthearted and a comedy.
Yeah.
Hayley chose the film. She apologised to me afterwards.
Oh, God.
She went, I'm sorry I made us watch that. So the other 1-star film that we watched is Moonfall. Now, this I would actually recommend you watch. I'll tell you for why. It is fucking insane. It is absolutely inane. It is terrible in all ways. Completely incoherent. It could almost be a spoof. It is by Roland Emmerich. He's done a few disaster films before, quite a few. Independence Day, Day After Tomorrow, 2012. He does all of these really terrible action disaster movies. But this is more of a disaster of a movie. But as you might have guessed, it is about the moon falling.
Right.
Called Moonfall. It's about the moon falling, and it is chock full of cliches, and there's a scene where people look absolutely nonplussed as a huge bit of the moon falls off and hits the hill nearby, and they go, ooh, and then go inside their house as if that will save them.
Quick, let's hide under a desk.
They just go inside. Oh, better go inside. That bit of the moon just took out that mountain over there. And then there's one-liners like, the moon will help us. And someone says, he's part of the moon now. And stuff like that.
Right. And it's not a comedy.
It's not a comedy. It's all done with this straight bat. But, there's a line about how the moon is the biggest conspiracy in the history of man or something. It was like, well, what? What does that even mean?
I mean, they might have got confused with the moon landing, but maybe not the moon.
No, the moon is the conspiracy.
The moon's not there. Right, okay, so the moon's not real. Okay.
You should watch it.
Have you seen Don't Look Up?
I have, yeah.
I've not seen either of these films, but aren't they both the same premise?
Well, no, Don't Look Up's about a meteorite heading to Earth.
Right, okay,
and it's all a thinly veiled metaphor for climate change.
Right.
It's about the impending destruction of the Earth, but politicians won't listen, that sort of thing. Or you're just using it for political gain.
Where this is just the opposite.
Yeah, there's nothing deeper than that going on in this.
The moon falls and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then they have to launch an expedition to the moon to stop the moon falling.
Oh.
Yeah.
Isn't Patrick Wilson in this?
Patrick Wilson is in it. Halle Berry is in it.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't in Wanted, but she was in this. And one of the chaps from Game of Thrones. Oh, and what's his name? The friend from Ant-Man who does the backstories. Can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Scientologist bloke.
Yep, I've forgotten his name now.
Whatever. Him. He's in
one.
it as well. He plays the ex-wife's new husband.
Cool.
So you can probably figure out what happens to him from that description alone, because it is a Roland Emmerich film. You ever seen 2012?
Yeah.
That was crap. Moving on.
Let's move away from films then. I've actually been watching a few TV shows of late. I've been catching up on Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, season 8 and season 7, which is their current seasons. And I was going to say weekly, but it's not at all. My supernatural update is that I've just started season 7.
Oh.
So I'm still going on that. I've gone past the first 5 seasons.
Yep.
I actually took a break, so I did up to season 6 and I stopped. I thought, right, this is just being binged every day now. I need to take a break, step away from it, watch something else or do something else.
Yeah.
And then I was sat in bed the other night thinking, I'll just watch season 7. Let's just plough through it again.
And have you noticed their depreciation in quality post season 5? The John Coxon theory?
The John Coxon theory. Yeah. Season 6 isn't the best season. The sort of overarching plot, I guess, has carried on into season 7 from 6. It's not the best one, so I'm hoping for this sort of arc to finish. It includes like Sam and what Sam is going through. So I'm hoping that they drop that thread soon. As I said, I previously watched up to the end of season 9,
right?
But I can't remember much about what happens. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And me being the person that I am, I will watch it all the way to the end because I have to. Same thing that happened with Lost is that I had to watch Lost to the end. I didn't want to, but I had to, and then I was really upset about how it ended.
It's like me and Walking Dead, and that is rubbish. So yeah, no, I get it. Well, I will live vicariously through you when it comes to Supernatural then, and you can fill me in on a regular basis on how Sam and Mark? Dean. I was going to say Sam and Mark.
Sam and Mark.
Children's TV presenters here.
CBeebies presenters. Sam and Dean.
Okay.
Anyway, I might do an update when we cover The Boys in a few episodes' time, because Dean is in season 3 of that.
He is. All right then. Well, I'll look forward to it. But I think that's enough of that for one episode. Thanks once again for listening. Feel free to give us a subscribe to listen to some of our less COVID-riddled episodes. You can contact us on Twitter at becometheteapot or email becometheteapot@hotmail.com or any of the other socials if you have any questions, comments, or medical advice. Speaking of medical advice, next episode, in preparation for the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we're going to be revisiting the first Doctor Strange film to reacquaint ourselves with the mystic medic. Maybe he can help me shake this illness. After all, he has taken the oath.
I'm hoping that episode will be not only strange, but mad. Stay tuned for more.
Absolute mad lad. To listen to some of our less COVID-riddled episodes. Speaking of which, I'll start coughing. Good timing. Who's ready for a cough montage? Oh, brilliant. Sorry. Right. How do we lead on to eggs? Corona? I hardly knew her.